Alright, here we are at part 3. Hopefully we're going to get a little leveling done tonight. Guitar's been sitting in the jig a little bit and the gauges have moved some, so we got to bring those back to 0. And I will adjust, I don't know if I can get both in at the same time, the jack. There we go. As I loosen that, there, it came down to 0. And that one, I'll have to tighten the strap, and I've got to do that with 2 hands because I've got to turn the little knurled knob under here. Well, we got the neck back to 0 after just tweaking the jack and the strap a bit. And so the neck's straight again. I've got my 12-inch sanding radius beam, and I put some, we're going to start with 320 grit self-stick tape. Before I do anything though, I want to tape up the fretboard with some drafting tape, because what I'll do is I'll put some magic marker on so we can see how the fret leveling is progressing. And I've got the body protected with just a little bit of cardboard that I cut around the extension of the fretboard down here on this end. Alright, I use this drafting tape because it's a low-tack tape, and it'll come off the comes off the fingerboard without you having to worry about pulling any of the finish off. But it tacks well enough that you can that it holds well through the different stages of leveling and the different grits of paper. But it'll keep me from goofing up with that magic marker, so that especially with the inlay here, it's a fairly good size inlay, and I don't want to get any blue on my abalone inlay here. Alright, the board's all taped up, but I want to show you something too up here. I don't know if you can see it real close. These frets are actually in really pretty good shape. They got, particularly down here at the first position, usually you get some nicks or gouges in the frets down here, which is typically why you do fret dressing or leveling, and they're not bad. So I don't think we're going to have to take an awful lot off of these frets to get them to match. Now the next step, what I've got to do, I've got a blue Sharpie, and I'm going to go down each of the frets and put a little blue on here, and then we'll go over it with the sanding beam and see what we get. Okay, go with the Sharpie. Alright, got them all done there. And too much coffee sometimes. Need a couple dots here, and that's why I wanted to tape the board, just in case it slip a little. So then what we'll do, we'll just take a couple swipes with the radius gauge here and see how we're affecting the frets. And we'll just double check, make sure we're at 0, which we are. So it's interesting, the number 2 fret is high. We're taking off quite a bit here. Taking a little bit off the low side here of the 1st fret. See, 5th, we're hitting a little bit. And down here now, I want to make sure, because it seems like I'm getting quite a few of the frets on this side. I want to make sure I'm not accidentally leaning that way, or what I'll do is I'll turn the block around too and just try and get even pressure on here. And I'm not pushing down, I'm just letting the weight of the beam do this. Okay. Definitely still hitting this 2nd fret. A little bit of the 1st. Not getting much down in this area here. And there must have been a high fret here because we're down, what's this, 20? Hitting this fret. Could have been high and around it. So I'm just going to keep doing that till I get most of the Sharpie off. Okay, I've probably taken maybe not quite a dozen strokes back and forth, and I'm finding something kind of interesting here. We've hit the first few frets here, and then in the middle, not much. We're just starting to touch it, but we've definitely taken over the extension here, the fingerboard extension. So what this is telling me is we probably had a slight rise here, and rather than keep going and take more material off the front here, I think we generally want some fall away anyway. So I'm going to get one of those smaller radius blocks, remark this, and take these down a little bit more, and then continue with the rest of the board so that we start hitting some of these frets here, so that I'm not overly aggressive on the 1st and the 2nd fret. Alright, let's have a look at what's going on here. Okay. I don't know if you can still see some of the blue coming down this way. It's a little hard to pick up. There's very little on the 1st and 2nd fret. And what I did down over the tongue here, the extension, is I used the short radius block, 12-inch, and I just concentrated down here for a bit. Well, I'm touching all the frets now, even the ones in the middle that we weren't touching before. I'm just starting to get some of the blue coming off, so I'm going to stop right there with the large radius block, except I'm just going to make sure that I really do have some fall away here. So I learned a neat trick from another video on YouTube. You can use a little bit of paper down at the front of the fretboard just to raise it a little bit and give it a few strokes, and most of it'll take more of the material off down near the extension end here. Alright, the board's pretty nice and level with the large beam. So now that was 320 grit. What I've got here is 400. I've got, this should be 600, 800, and I'm going to take it to 1000 just to help get the 320 grit scratches out. And I'm just going to use a smaller block here. And I think I'll remark them and use the smaller 12, and then we'll recrown them and then polish them. Alright, the way it sits now is we've gone through the 320 grit on the large block till I started hitting and taking a little bit of the blue off on the last frets. Then I changed to the shorter block, and I used the 400, 600, 800 up to 1000 just to help take some of the scratches out. Now what I'll do is I'll remark them and recrown the frets to get them, you know, with the half round top. Alright, sorry about that. The battery died on the camera, so I had to plug it in. Okay, I've recrowned all the frets using my fret files. These are diamond files. I started with the 150 grit and I had put blue again on all the frets. And actually the 150 was pretty aggressive. I didn't do too many with the 150. It was going too quick for me. So then I went down to the 300. And I just went, and it's going to be, I can barely see it myself, but I just went far enough that there's a small, just a thin pinstripe of blue on top of each of these frets, which means, you know, we didn't lose the integrity of the fret leveling that we did. So I'm going to stop there, and now what I'm going to do is take micro mesh papers and just bring these frets up to a high polish. I've got micro mesh papers here. I think they start, let's see here. Basically I've got the sponge that I rounded the end here. Okay. These are new here. These are the ones I've used. They start at, I think it's 1500 grit. But I'm going to start a little milder. There's 1500, 1800. Here's 2400. I don't think the grits on this matches the sandpaper exactly, but since we had taken these down to 1000 with the sanding block, I'm going to start at 2400. And basically what I do is I just try and, you know, flap it back and forth and just try and bring a nice round up to the top, and then eventually we'll take the blue off the top. But since we're using such a fine grit, I'm not worried about losing the levelness of the board. So it's 2400. Next is 3200. $3,200, $3,600, and so on, all the way up to 12,000, and that's basically all I'm doing. Well, I got two grits left. I've got 8,000 and 12,000. I just wanted to show this to you because I do a little different thing here at the end. These are so fine; they're practically like a, you know, leather, like the final step on buffing out a chisel after you sharpen it or something. It's dropping it. And as I get into these upper grits, I make sure that I try and get the side two of the fret here to smooth it out. But then I take it and I almost do like a shoe shine action. And I try and make sure I hit each fret. And obviously these down here over the tongue Got to get with my finger. And I'll do exactly the same thing with the 12,000. Okay, it's hard work. Alright, so we've got them all the way up to 12,000 on the micro mesh, and the final step is I hand polish each of these out with some fine polishing compound. One thing I don't do is I don't use steel wool. I don't like it. I get splinters from it. It just seems to get in everything. The metal just gets everywhere. Not such a big deal on an acoustic, but if you get an electric guitar, the pickups being magnetic will pick up all that steel dust. I used to use it. I just don't anymore. I don't like it. And this is basically what I do. I'm going to go right down the board, polish each one of those, just a lot of elbow grease, and just, you know, concentrate, spend the time, and just bring them up to a high shine. Okay, before I finish with the polishing compound, I just want to see if the camera can pick this up. 12,000 grit is really fine on that micro mesh, but I don't know, can you... I've done the first three with the polishing compound, and these, you can see the fourth and on down, those are up to the 12,000 grit micro mesh, but they're not as shiny and smooth. You do a fret job like this and it's just you know, unbelievable the way they shine and the way they feel when you start playing the guitar. Alright, my friends, that's a lot of elbow grease on that. Alright, they're done. So I think we can start taking the tape off, and then we'll get this thing out of the jig. So I'm so glad I put this tape on, because I really did miss the marker in a few places. It just... I've seen some guys that have done a lot more guitars than me also on YouTube, and some of them do it freehand. But I'm not there yet. Alright, tape's off. Time to unjig it. Alright, it's out of the jig and back on the bench, and the frets are level. Oop. I'm accidentally hitting the zoom. Okay. So what I wanted to do initially anyway was take this down and take the saddle down a little bit and give the guitar a little better action. Now if we look real close at the saddle, you can see that the strings have started wearing some notches into the top of the saddle. And the problem with that, particularly I think on the B string here, this is the largest notch, the B string really sits down in there, and I think it's kind of hampering its ability to vibrate, and the tone sounds a little dampened on the B string. So since I have to take the saddle down anyway, I'm going to take it off the top to start, just to try and get these notches out of here. And it's a 12-inch radius. The saddle matches 12 inches, so we'll take it down, and it's just going to be enough to get these notches out of here. I'll take those notches out using my 12-inch radius beam. Okay, took the saddle out here, and fretboard's a 12-inch radius. We just put 12-inch radius back onto the frets. The nut, which you put it on the nut is a 12-inch radius. But when I check the saddle's a little flatter than that. The saddle's actually looks to be about a 10. And I've learned that everything should be the same. If you get the same radius, you know, we don't have a compound radius. And the few guitars that I've made a couple guitars, I've always used the same radius too on the saddle. And the nut and everything matched. So got my 12-inch block, and we're gonna make it 12-inch. Alright, so I've got this sanded and pretty well set to go. But we really didn't go down too much more than where the original strings were sitting. Maybe not the middle ones, but the action was high. The way I had it before. And I wanted to bring it down about 2/64. So in order to drop it by 2/64, you have to double the amount at the saddle. So I set my calipers for that measurement, and I'm just gonna put a line on here. Okay, I can see the line under this light. So what I'll start doing now is I've got a sanding table back here with 80, 320, goes, well, there's 220, I think there's 180 grit on there, and I'll just take this down to the line, and then we're going to see how the action is. Okay, got the saddle taken down here, and just almost to the line. I didn't go quite to the line, just to be a little on the conservative side. But I'm going to polish it up here again with the this polishing compound. I don't think this saddle is actually bone. I think it might be like that tusk material, because there's a couple marks in the bottom. They go right through. There's like 3 of them in a row. But if I was going to make another saddle, I would definitely make it out of bone. Okay, that looks pretty good. The saddle is definitely lower. Put it in, so we'll see. I still have some brake angle down here, but it took it down, or I took it down quite a bit on that end. Still got plenty the E, the A, D, G, B looks pretty good. I'm going to clean up the fretboard here since I got the strings off. This is a Dunlop 65 cleaner. I think it's a good cleaner. I don't know about leaving it on for conditioning. I kind of wipe it off, but I like it for cleaning the fretboard. Just make sure I get it all the way down here. Clean rag. Oh, see, you're getting quite a bit of stuff off. And for protecting the board, I actually use linseed oil. I get this at an art shop. You don't need a lot, just a little, and you don't do this very often. Maybe once, twice a year. Alright, strings are back on it. And I busted the A. That's why this one looks gold, because I just had another of the same size, 42. And I'm going to put a new set of strings on when we're all done anyway. But I had elixirs on here, and this is just a single alchemy I had laying around. But it's still a 42, so that's fine. Neck, I just checked it. It's straight. Well, I'm still getting a little buzz on this D with it being straight. So, you know, I'm just wondering if that might not be a matter of the nut being a little low there, even though that was 17. But that's a little, I guess that is a little low for the D. But it's straight right now. So I'm going to give it a little relief because I usually do keep around 6,000, 7,000s. So I'll back off the truss rod and then we'll see how it is here. Okay, there's my 7,000ths of relief. No buzzing. Let's look at the action here. Well, it's definitely lower than when we started, I'll tell you. This is just a titch. The base E is just a titch. It's about 5/64, maybe just a hair more than 5/64. And the treble is 4/64. That actually came down more than I thought it was going to. I'm glad I didn't go all the way down that line. But that's good. That's perfect. That's great. That'll play well for me. So let's leave it sit overnight. I'm I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything with the nut or not. But yes, I am. I'm still going to take the B and the E down if these are still this high. We'll see what they are over the fret, because we took some off on these frets, so we'll see what the action is over the first fret here. We'll do that tomorrow. I'm going to let it sit overnight, just kind of stabilize again. And I think hopefully if that works out, we'll be done.